Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps. Here's your host, Jacob Wells.
Welcome to Latte with the Lawyer. I'm your host, Jacob Wells, and I'm really excited today because I have one of the leading personal injury attorneys, Mike Rafi. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm probably the worst guest you can have because I don't drink lattes.
Got my coffee right here, finishing it up. But you don't drink lattes, so what's your drink of choice in the morning? Are you a tea guy or?
There's some orange juice sitting over there, mainly because I can't imagine if I started. I've never had coffee. If I started drinking coffee,
Really?
I'd be hopped up and I'd be talking 9 million miles a minute instead of 1 million.
Well, I'm starting to feel a little bit jittery, but let's, coffee is hard to kick, man. It's an addicting drug for sure. But thanks again for taking the time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy. Before we get into the episode, mind just giving us an overview of who you are?
Yeah, my name is Mike Rafi. I live and work in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm originally from New Jersey. I made my way down to South Carolina for school, for undergrad, and then Georgia for law school. If I keep going south, I'll end up in South Florida, which is the same as New Jersey. So maybe we'll just keep doing that.
How did you end up down south as a guy from Jersey?
My grandparents, who I'm really close with, they live in Davidson, North Carolina. So At the time, I was looking for a smaller college where I wouldn't get in too much trouble, or if I did, it would kind of be okay. So I went to Furman University, and then there's a pretty well-beaten path between Furman and the University of Georgia for law school.
Cool. So how do you like it out in Atlanta?
It's good. It's starting to get hot. It's starting to become that time where you walk outside and it's like someone dumped a bucket of water on you. But other than that, it's great. It's a cool city where you have these little neighborhoods within the city, so you can, live in the city without feeling like you're living in a concrete jungle.
Yeah, sounds nice, man. So when you were in undergrad, how did you get into the legal field? How did you get interested in becoming a lawyer?
So Furman has a pretty successful mock trial team, which I didn't know what the heck that was before I got there. I had never heard of the thing. We didn't have it at my high school. I played baseball, basketball, and soccer and didn't even know about that stuff. So I went there, and just some of my friends and some of the people that I met were doing it, and I joined, and it was a lot of fun. It's probably the best preparation for my job right now, literally the undergrad mock trial stuff that I did.
So just like a extracurricular sort of club thing?
Yeah, but it was taken pretty seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, I would compare it to like a club sport where you meet a couple times a week, you have practices, and then you go around the country or go wherever to compete. I mean, we'd had competitions in New York, Minnesota, all over. It's a really big thing now. It's gotten even crazier.
I didn't know that.
For me.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I mean, now, what is it? The American Mock Trial Association is like a huge organization, and, schools all across the country compete, and it's become a really big thing. I'm glad that it wasn't like that when I was in college. I was too busy wanting to drink beer.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never knew about this mock trial thing that they had at school. I guess it's similar to like a Model UN sort of thing where you're saying that it's pretty serious.
Yeah, I think it's in that same kind of thing as a Model UN or a debate kind of thing. But when I say people take it seriously, like teams have coaches that are lawyers, and it's a whole thing.
Do you think the people that you were starting to see as you're traveling around during the mock trial, are they people that you're still friends with today, colleagues of yours?
There's people I see. There's the guy who coaches the Georgia Tech team was someone that I met at Elon University in 2000 and something, 2004. I don't know. But yeah, there's a good group of people that I know through that, either from the Furman teams or from other teams that go around. And then when you get to law school, you get some people who have that experience in undergrad, and then they're doing, moot court or mock trial in law school, and you you kind of see those same faces again.
Cool. So after you did the mock trial stuff and you started to get that bug for being a trial attorney, how did you end up starting your own law firm and
Yeah,
becoming a real
I took a
lawyer?
yeah, I took a quick stop and worked for a bunch of TV stations. I worked for a cable news station. Politics aside, I don't know what my politics are, but I worked for Fox News for a while.
I saw that. I saw you were on Fox News. There was
Most
somebody.
Some people don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because it's changed. That landscape has changed a lot. So
No, I mean, I'll touch it.
yeah.
Let's get into it. I don't care.
I went and worked there. I worked for Lindsey Graham when I was at Furman, and got connected with some of the Fox News folks. At that time, the Gang of Eight was a big thing where the 8 senators were kind of crossing back and forth, making some helping laws pass. Maybe that can happen one day again. But I got close with some of the folks there at Fox through that. Did an internship in the summer and then was hired back. And I think my title was associate producer while I was there. So I did a lot of guest booking. I did a lot of segment producing, which really just means thinking of the ideas and coming up with a way to do it. I worked mainly at the time, the spots were different. The lineup was different, but I worked mainly for Bill Hemmer. Shepard Smith was still there. I worked for him. So I did the daytime hours. Had a weird schedule. I worked on Saturdays and some other weird times, but it was neat. I mean, I was in the newsroom when, 2 Fox, a reporter and a camera person had been captured in the Middle East at the time. And I was in the newsroom when they got back. I was in the newsroom when Saddam Hussein was executed, when we got word of that. So, I mean, it was really, really cool. And from there, I went and worked for a DC bureau of Cox Broadcasting, which at the time owned 17 or so stations around the country. The big ones being WSB here in Atlanta, WSOC, a Charlotte station, Orlando, a San Francisco station. I haven't thought about this in a while. And I did local news for all those stations, but based out of DC. So it's kind of like your DC national news, but for your local station. So if you were watching TV in Orlando, you'd think I was an Orlando reporter. But if you were watching in San Francisco, you'd think I was a San Francisco reporter. So a lot of different state specific takes on the same story at that time. For example, California was bankrupt. So did a lot of stories about that with a California angle, and then, a national angle for our other stations. And the problem with that kind of work, in my eyes at least, is you just tell a story and then you stop, you walk away and you're done. There's no real resolution. You're just saying what's going on, which is rewarding for a ton of people. Wasn't particularly rewarding for me. And then the other problem that I had, at least with that kind of work, is your deal is a 2-year deal, and then you go to different stations, hopefully bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger stations. And I don't really want to move. So I didn't want to go across the country to El Paso, Texas. Nothing wrong with that. Steubenville, Ohio, wherever you can go. That wasn't something I wanted to do. So I went to law school. And that's how I ended up becoming a real lawyer, like you said.
Yeah, that's an interesting transition, like you said, to go from telling the stories and then just stopping to law, which is, these cases are a narrative in their own right, but there's more meaning and it's real people's lives that are, it's a longer process that's more tangible, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same skills. I mean, on TV, the other problem is that the issue I had was you have maybe 90 seconds to tell a whole story. Lawyers could spend 90 years telling a whole story. So the other end of the spectrum is bad too. But 90 seconds to give a story of somebody's life is really tough. And you stop there and you never find the resolution. You're not really making changes or fixing anything or making people's lives better. You're telling the world what's going on. And that's a valuable thing that we need in society. And I'm glad there's people who do that, because that's not what I want to do.
Sure. That's a really interesting background. And I'm curious how your time there working in news made you, a unique lawyer. I'm sure those set of skills has probably helped you in the courtroom in terms of your communication and things like that, right?
Yeah, and it even helps before that. You think right now, we get a call a couple of days ago. We got a call from someone who was injured pretty badly.
Mm.
My first thing to do is get on the phone with them and make them feel good, make them trust me in a very small, short period of time. So that way, I can go meet them in person, uh, help them, tell them what they need to know, and then eventually represent them. That's very similar with news in that first step, which is you find out what's going on. There's some newsworthy story, and you then need to go find the players, get them to trust you so that they'll talk to you on camera, which most people don't want to do. Talking on camera is pretty similar to seeing a traffic accident. I don't know about you, and maybe this is terrible for me to say, but when I see a crash and I'm driving down the road, I don't stop unless somebody's really injured. I'm not going there and I don't want to be a witness. Most people don't want to be a witness on the police report coming to court months, years later. And that's kind of what it's like trying to get somebody to talk about a story on TV, on camera. So it starts way from there. And then, the type of people and the different walks of life that you interact with, in your news job. I mean, just watch TV for an hour straight and think about all the different types of people you interact with. Those are our clients. They're real human beings. They're not, corporate button up suit wearing people. Some are, but that's not our typical client, because that's not the typical human. So it helps from there. And then it helps, certainly, I think the biggest skill I walked away with was hopefully trying to figure out what the heck matters and telling that, and then forgetting about all the stuff. Lawyers, we spend in Georgia, at least, we spend at least 6 months in discovery, which is where we're exchanging information with the other side. And you might spend 4 months trying to get something, and it might not matter, you find out. And it's really tough to look back and say, I spent 4 months trying to get that, and now I have to just ignore it because it doesn't matter. But in TV news, with that 90-second time frame, you got to really cut to the chase and tell people what matters and forget about all the rest, no matter how long it took you to find out that information.
Yeah. Can you give an example of something like in the discovery process that you were looking for several months that didn't end up panning out?
Emails. So, I mean, we spend an incredible amount of time with corporate defendants trying to get, ESI, I'll make it broader, electronically stored information. So anything that's pretty much anything nowadays. Like, I don't know about where, most people's offices, but there are very, very, very few things in my office that are not electronically stored somewhere. Everything goes through a computer. So with corporate defendants, you have that as well. You might spend, we've got a case right now. We've been spending 9 months, literally right now, sending emails about this morning, trying to get more, better, a broader range of electronically stored information. And I bet you 99.9% of that stuff is not going to matter, but the 0.1% might, and that may make or break the case. So we spend a lot of time, doing that. When I worked for a defense firm, and my main client was Georgia Power, which is the largest electricity utility here in Georgia. It's the power company. So they also have the most amount of trucks in commercial vehicles in the state. So we defended a lot of their crash cases. And, sometimes you'd have this witness that may have seen something, and on the defense side, it wasn't worth it to go there. The client said, hey, it's not worth your billable hour. That's not worth the time. That's not worth doing. Put it aside. And if the witness comes up later, then go find him. On the plaintiff side, which is, what I do, we're tracking down every single lead because it could make a huge difference in the case, especially when, your client's in whatever type of situation they're in. And then the lawyers were only paid on a contingency fee. So the idea of what matters and what doesn't, and what roads I'm willing to go down to try to find something that matters, is much, much greater than it used to be.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So have you seen the discovery process change at all in the past few years with, new technologies that have come out? How has that affected what you do?
On the electronically stored information side, it's really difficult working with older lawyers or lawyers who don't know technology.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I made the switch on my language in this conversation, going from emails to ESI, which is broader. It could mean something stored on your folders in your computer. It could mean something on a cell phone, on a server, on a whatever. And trying to explain that to somebody who has their paralegal print emails and then they handwrite a response and then the paralegal types the response and sends it back to whoever it needs to go to, that's tough. So, the idea that it's 2021, I mean, and companies don't search ESI, they don't search that kind of stuff as a matter of course, is crazy to me. It also means that things can be hidden and things, unless you ask the perfect question, here's what we want, here's where we want you to look for it. That's really, really tough. But on the other hand, it's made sharing discovery a lot easier. I mean, we have less paper in my office than I probably had in my college dorm. The only thing we have on paper are things that are blue pen signed, like actual originals of stuff signed. That's it. So it's made office operations really, really easy. Really.
Do you ever get worried? I mean, something that I think about a lot is paper is something that if you keep it in the right spot, if you take care of it, it could last forever. But hard drives are always crashing, and there's always technical issues. Do you ever worry that that's a problem, or you guys have tons and tons of backups in case something like that goes wrong?
Yeah, we do worry. I do worry. Most things though can be found again, created again, gotten again in whatever way. Like I'm sure over the course of time, we've probably lost something that was an original of something. I'm sure we have.
Yeah.
And I'm positive we were able to go get it again. But we've got a server in our office, we've got a server in the cloud, and we have a couple of backup hard drives in my desk drawer. So yeah, you can never be too safe.
Yeah.
So we take certain precautions. Our files aren't just on a Dropbox where somebody can log in. We do some safety measures. I think our clients are owed that, especially given the private data that we have. But it's at least my thought on it is that's it's got to be reasonable to the size of your firm and what kind of information you have.
Yeah, when I think about ESI, and honestly, it's the first time I heard that abbreviation, I think of like the Anthony Weiner case, right? Is that kind of along the lines?
Was that the photos of him with the girl? Am I right about this?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
I'm trying to think back.
that's ESI, right? They're going through his files and using that to convict him.
Yeah, think about a case where you have an employee who employee of a corporate defendant who uses their own personal email and for some work stuff, which happens. I mean, sometimes I write back on my phone, especially I have the wrong email click, so I'll send a personal.
For sure, yeah.
Or I text people, which I do all the time. Or I have a client who's a younger client. I guess now she's still younger. She's 20 years old, but she's been a client of ours since 16, 17. She'll send me a message on Instagram. Like I have an Instagram chat that's gone back with her 3 years. So if corporate defendants and their employees or whoever are doing this kind of stuff, which is pretty normal right now, you got to go get that information. And then you get into privacy rights and you get into, what's fair to go get in a whatever kind of case type. In a rear end car crash, it's probably not worth anybody's time to go, for most cases, to go through emails, personal emails of the safety director or something like that. But there are cases where it certainly calls for that.
That's really interesting that there's so many modes of communication that you're using your line of work. Is there a way to separate your personal from your work? And do you ever worry that those things mixing could come back to haunt you? Like
all the time.
I don't know. It's a little scary.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you Instagram for an example.
Yeah.
I had 2 Instagram accounts for a long time, and one that was too much work. 2, it was just annoying. So I have one Instagram account. It's Georgia_lawyer. That's it. I even changed the name away from my name.
It's a pretty good name.
Yeah. I was surprised.
Some people want that username. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I have, just the way the world works, I have clients and college friends and lawyer friends and judges commenting on stuff, liking things. I get, chats from vendors and personal friends and family, all in the same, all in the same inbox. And that's true for LinkedIn, Facebook. I don't really use Twitter, so I won't say that one, but it's true for my emails. It's true for my texts. It's really true for my texts. And there's just, you are who you are, and either you're Mike, the lawyer to your clients, or you're Mike, the lawyer who I can't talk to because he only lets me call from 9 to 5. There's a lawyer up in New York. His name is, his last name is Fisher, John Fisher. And he's got a couple books out that are really good. I believe one is The Power of a System. But he has his clients, and I'm stealing his thunder here. He has his clients sign a communication agreement that say, you only communicate with me from these hours. And we've floated that idea around, and we've decided, frankly, to do the opposite. Where, if a client needs to talk to me, they're welcome to, although I try my best to make it clear, hey man, I'm not going to respond to you at 3 a.m. And I'm probably not going to respond to you at, 5 on a Saturday. I may, but the other thing is that lines get blurred, and this isn't a bad thing. We have a client in the hospital right now.
Yeah.
We call her stepdaughter every day. I text every morning. I'm like, hey, your mom okay? What's going on? So it's really hard to keep it so formal when communication has gotten so informal and so easy. I mean, think about emails, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, emails started with, Dear Jacob, I'm writing because, it was a formal letter. Now I write emails and I'm like, what's up? And that's just normal.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think of like when my grandpa would email me those long letters, sincerely, all that stuff. And now, it's very, very shorthand and like
my grandma,
lots of typos.
My grandma would end texts with love, like, dear Mike, love grandma. And
Yeah.
That's just her. She's going to do that. But my 22-year-old client who has had a cell phone in her hand since she was in 6th grade is not going to write that. She's going to write, what up with my case? And I'm not going to write thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm going to give her a call or say, hey, let me send you an email with a more formal update of what's going on. But client communication, you still, on our side, on the lawyer side, you still got to do enough, and you should be doing enough to give a meaningful update, not kind of the thumbs up, thumbs down. How's my case? Thumbs up. That's not helping anybody. So
right.
But we're the ones we're the ones they've hired. They're our clients. They can communicate with me however the heck they want. They could, I don't know, send smoke signals in the air. I, though, still need to do my job of responding as appropriately as it should be.
Mm-hmm. So besides for the communication changing and the discovery process changing with ESI, is there anything else that you see happening in the future, especially, since our show is sponsored by Motion Track, which is a technology company? Where do you think the future of the industry is going, whether it be AI or anything else?
So what kind of TV do you watch if you're putting on the TV?
Either watching Sopranos or Mad Men.
On what?
On a streaming service.
Okay. Any commercials on there?
Unless it's Hulu, probably not.
And then you can scroll around to whatever you want real quick, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing when you sit on your couch, I assume? What are you doing while you're watching? Are you on your phone or iPad or doing something else?
No. And I have a lot of friends that do that, but I have a background in film, and I'm very against that. You gotta phones off, respect the content.
All right. You're with me though, that most people are sitting there. Yeah, they're, I mean, like I love The Sopranos, obviously from New Jersey. A lot of that stuff rings true to me.
Yeah.
Whether it's Mad Men, Sopranos, The Wire, whatever. But my couch is over this way, so I'm pointing over here. If I'm sitting on my couch, I'm on my phone. There's an iPad or a computer next to me. My dog is sleeping down here. He's probably biting my feet. I've got a balcony out here. I'm probably listening to what stupid people are doing outside my house. And I've got the TV on, and I don't know, maybe I've left music on as well. Like literally. Maybe that's a little too far and shows you where my mind is just racing. But most people are doing 4 things at once when they're taking in information. It used to be, I'm going to read this book, and I I do this, but I'm going to read this book and that's all I'm going to do. And that's really refreshing and that's great. But the average juror nowadays is taking in 4, 5, 6 streams of information at one time. So in terms of technology, we need to incorporate that into how we present things to all of our audiences, whether that's clients that we sign up to present their case to them, whether that's judges, juries, whoever. You need to incorporate the different types of knowledge streams, information streams. So when I do a closing argument, I want things flashing. I want, what's the average TikTok video? I don't know, 30 seconds, maybe. So if I'm not doing something to keep attention for every 30, 60, 90 seconds and incorporating different forms of media, people are going to go to sleep. And that's expected. Take the stupid crime scene, CSI, crime scene investigation example. Every juror now thinks that there's going to be an accident reconstruction in every case, that there's going to be some DNA somewhere, there's going to be blood, you're going to be able to recreate the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you either don't dispel that right away and tell them what really is going to happen, or play into that, you're struggling. In a truck crash, I think the standard now almost is I'm going to have an accident reconstructionist. I'm going to have a video graphic of how the crash happened. I'm going to have imaging, meaning like MRIs, X-rays that the jury can actually see as if they're the doctor. I'm going to have, photos, videos, whatever it is, and you have to address that.
So, obviously you have this knowledge about how we have short attention spans, how we have so much going on, and you have this background in news entertainment. So you understand that, like you said earlier, there's a lot of lawyers who are old and are, having trouble even getting on to Zoom focus groups. So do you think these people are going to come around, or they're just going to phase out?
I know. I mean, think of the learning curve now.
Yeah.
I am not the most technologically savvy person I know, but for the purposes I need them, if I could throw my phone in the ocean and never use it again and live on a wooden boat in the middle of nowhere, I would go do that tomorrow.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not saying these are great things. I'm just saying these are the expectations, and these are what go with the job.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's ways to be a great storyteller without incorporating all of these different types of media. And you just got to be yourself. I mean, that's probably the biggest takeaway that I talk to people about is, if you're somebody, a friend of mine, Drew Ashby, put on a presentation 2 weeks ago. He spoke after I spoke at a conference. And, my presentation is, I put up some slides with just some information and I'm walking around. That's just what I prefer to do. I walk around to people in this big room and I just talk to people. And I feel good about that. Drew's presentation is the polar opposite. He gives a lead in, he shows a slide, it's got video. I mean, it looks professional as shit. It looks totally packed together. And I was so impressed. That's not me though. I don't feel comfortable with that. So you got to find the balance of who you are. And if it works, it works. But the idea of just not incorporating the things that are going on in the world, I don't think that's going to work for you no matter what.
Yeah, that's interesting, because if you understand that people have a short attention span, you can either do what Drew is doing, or you can do what you're doing, but you're really accomplishing the same thing, right? Because you're just making it more snappy and you're getting people's attention. You're walking around. You're essentially doing the same thing, just in a different way, right?
Yeah. I mean, and if you try to be somebody else, which I think all of us have tried to do at some point in our lives, careers, whatever, you go a little too far, you like what somebody else does, and you try to incorporate that too much where you're almost trying to be that person. If you're not yourself, that's the jury's gonna, whoever you're talking to, the audience is gonna see through that. They're gonna see that you're not being genuine, even if it's not intentional. So my thing is, I'm gonna, you and I did not talk before this. I don't know your questions. I'm just gonna talk about what I want to talk about, and that's, or whatever it is that however I respond, and that's kind of my take on life and talking to jurors. I certainly plan things and write things out and practice. But in the end, I'm going to say what I want to say in that moment, and it's going to be real, honest, and authentic. And if you don't like it, at least you know that I don't mean any offense by it. I think I'm doing the best job I can, and I'm being real with you. And that's what I want jurors and clients and other lawyers who send me cases. That's what I want them to think of when they think of me is, you get what you get, and I'm not I'm not bullshitting you. That's my takeaway, most things.
And I'm sure, like, as you've done these podcasts and webinars and things like that, it's similar talking points. So you have, a narrative of, I'm sure, like, this is repetitive. A lot of the things you get asked, right?
Yeah, sometimes. And it's also on me though. I mean, funny enough, I tend to gravitate towards the idea of don't bullshit people as being a topic, be real, be authentic. That's a topic that I'm the one who brings that up, as well as just be honest and candid.
Mhm.
And I think that's just something that's really important. And from doing podcasts and webinars, I started doing webinars last year, initially out of boredom, but we did one per week all through quarantine. And you realize looking back what the same topics are and what the same talking points are that you deliver, because those are the things you want to talk about. So, it's not on the person asking the questions always. It's sometimes on the person who's answering the questions, me.
Gotcha.
That these are the things that I find important, and these are the things that I naturally talk about.
No, I really agree with you about being yourself and being genuine. And I think it's interesting because you see a lot of people in the legal space that want to come off as being virtuous, but sometimes what you see versus who they are is different. Do you find that that's a prevalent thing in the legal industry?
I don't know. I think that's probably true all across the board.
Yeah.
Personal injury lawyers specifically get a bad rap because, the whole we only get paid if you win and we want the most money. And what I do is I embrace that. I say, yeah, I only get paid if I win. I actually lose money if I lose, because I've been paying all the expenses. I've been paying, the staff. I've been spending time, energy, resources. So I have every investment to win. And certainly I want the most amount of money I possibly can get. And I'm not bashful about that. We tell the jury that.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I can get. This woman who's in the hospital and her injuries are horrific. If I could fix that, I genuinely, honestly would. If I could go out of business tomorrow because people stop getting injured, I'll go find something else to do. Like, I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah.
But until that happens, or until insurance companies start treating people fairly, where, I tell people all the time, if insurance companies would treat you fairly, I wouldn't have a job, because they would give you enough money to make it make sense for you, and you wouldn't need to hire a lawyer. But apples to apples, I'll get you more money in your pocket than you would get if you handled your case alone by making a claim to your insurance company, and I'll get you way more. So
yeah, somebody's got to do it, right? I mean, I remember this one thing. It was this show, Everybody Hates Chris. It was based on Chris Rock's life, and there's a character who works at a funeral home, and every time somebody gets injured, he's like hoping for them to die, because like that's good for his business. Somebody's got to do these types of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're a service-based business. If our service was unnecessary, we would not have a job. And the reasons that our business is needed and the reasons we are necessary is because people do stupid stuff, sometimes intentionally, sometimes negligently, unreasonably.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, the injured person is not given a fair shake. We were talking about older lawyers and this whole electronically stored information. If you look at most lawyers who are successful lawyers and probably over the age of, I don't know, 65, let's say, somewhere around there, you will almost always see in their bio that they are an aviation lawyer. And I think, and you look and you're like, aviation lawyer, what? Aviation, what's that? Well, 60s, 70s, 80s, planes were falling out of the sky because they weren't well built, they weren't well maintained, and small planes were going down much, much more than they do now. So I think I know that's what's going to happen with cars. In our office, if somebody calls and says, I've been really badly injured and I was in a And then they stop, and I'm like, oh, that person's really screwed up, because that 1908, whatever that year is, pre-2000, that car did not keep you safe. If you call up and tell me I'm in a 2020 Volvo, I mean, you're in a tank, I know you probably aren't that badly hurt, or if you are, you were in a terrible, terrible crash.
Especially with the self-driving cars. Once everybody has Teslas, you know.
Well, the problem with that, I got a stupid question for you. So you
No,
buy
go ahead.
you buy car insurance, so that way if you do something stupid while driving, make a mistake, you're insured, you're protected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you need car insurance if the car drives itself?
I think the only thing that the insurance would be providing is in case there's a glitch or malfunction, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, so if I'm driving down the road, and I don't know the answer to this, if I'm driving down the road in my Tesla or whatever, or I'm on a car that's hooked in the Google system of roads, and the car is
Yeah.
driving itself and hits someone, what the heck did I do wrong? I'm not at fault. I trusted Google or Tesla or whoever to make me a safe car that they said wouldn't hit other cars. So does that mean every car accident case is now a products liability case, which is has some very far-reaching negative effects? I don't know. These are things that are eventually going to happen, though, and I bet you car accident lawyers, one day presumably will be completely out of business. Got to be.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting to think about how it transfers over to more of the, like you said, the product liability. These car companies are going to have
Yeah,
way more.
I sued John Smith for hitting my client Karen, and John Smith goes, "Man, I was on autopilot. I was eating breakfast. What did I do?" And
Yeah.
as long as it's not unreasonable to be on autopilot, so he was following the rules of the car. What did he do wrong? I mean, to me, it's the same as if somebody's walking down the street looking at their phone, texting, and they fall into a hole. Do you think they were acting unreasonably by texting while walking?
Yeah, I think the liability's on them.
I don't know. I at least, it gives me pause, because I walk around texting all the time, looking at my phone, bumping into shit. I mean,
Yeah.
all the time. So like, what does a reasonable person do? A reasonable person walks and texts. I don't know. It's, does a reasonable person text and drive? I don't know. I bet if you do a focus group of that, you're going to have most people have texted while driven. And are most people unreasonable? I don't know. So these are the kind of things that I think about while drinking beer.
No, I agree with you. I think that we are at a time where we have way more added challenges. There are challenges presented from social media and phone use, and these things didn't exist 40 years ago. And these are not issues that we had to deal with.
Yeah, another buddy of mine has one of the most interesting cases I've heard of recently. They're suing Snapchat because if you remember, this is probably off on years, but 5, 6, 7 years ago, Snapchat had the filter where you would take a picture and it would tell you how fast you were going. It would tell you, it'd say like 80 miles an hour. Well, what kids were doing is they were driving really fast to make the Snapchat score, filter, whatever, go really high. And this lawsuit that's going on against Snapchat, which was revived here in Georgia, I think is really, really interesting, because it's what the heck did Snapchat expect to happen when you put a filter on, or basically a miles per hour gun, a reader on your app that's used by children? You're going to get people trying to go as fast as humanly possible, and do you not think about that consequence?
Yeah, for sure. What do you know, what by any chance what their argument is, what their intention was? Like, how can you defend that?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's just, hey, we put a filter on there. You can use it for when you're not driving. You can use it when you're on a plane, a boat. You can use it when you're running. It's not our fault that somebody decided to try to set a high score. And you can see both sides of that to some degree, at least.
Wow. Yeah, you definitely have a lot of interesting things to say. I'm happy we had this conversation. Is there a case of yours that comes to mind as like one of your favorite exciting cases that you worked on?
That's fine. This is a question I answered last week or 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to give a different answer though. We had a case with a woman who was hit head on by it was a water utility truck. And, to give you some idea of her injuries, she went to one of the best hand surgeons in the country. And the surgeon said it was like putting together a jigsaw puzzle of her hands, except that was through pretty much her entire body. We had a graphic that we made that was, the human skeleton, and it showed every bone that was broken, every problem. And I mean, looking at that thing took 20 minutes to even just get a grasp of the areas of her body that were hurt. And we spent a ton of time on that case. I had an accident reconstructionist out that day, the day we found out about it. Had a ton of work put into that case and litigated it because we needed to, because there was this dispute about who crossed the line and who was responsible for hitting her. And oddly enough, she was actually suing her employer. She worked for that utility, but she was leaving work. So it wasn't a workers' comp case. She had to prove they were wrong. She wasn't on the clock. And she was literally suing, her job and coworkers. And that, going through those challenges for her on a personal level, and on our side, winning the case by being able to show by this one gash in the road that both experts focused on, we were able to show pretty definitively that, this other vehicle was the one who crossed the line. And, looking back on that case, and specifically that client, her name was Danita. Danita lives down the road from me, and I think back to when I first met her, and she, not to give some terrible, sad story, but I think back, she's one of the clients I think back when I first met her. I walked out of there, and called my office and called my friends and said, "You're not going to imagine who I just met." And oh my God, this lady is so bad off right now physically. But she's one of the most uplifting and upbeat people that I've ever met. And she's back at work right now. She is doing what she wants to do. And those are the kind of stories that I think two things are important from them. One is, if you go to my office right now, you will hear the same, 5 or 10 names, client names said, and it's our bad clients, to be honest. It's the ones everybody complains about, right?
Yeah.
If you work in a big office and you have the two jerks in your office, everybody talks about the two jerks. Did you hear what Steve did? Did you hear what Deborah did? That's who people talk shit about, right?
Yeah.
So those are the people we talk shit about in our office.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't talk about, and what sometimes gets overlooked, is the 99% of clients who are good, hardworking, truthful people that are in a terrible situation that they didn't cause. And you don't want to, especially when we hire new employees, for example, we make sure that we tell them about our good cases and our good clients and all those good people that we help. And then the second thing is, keep up with those people. They're part of you have a relationship with them because they were the person that you relied upon. And I take that very seriously. The closer relationship you have, the more of a burden or responsibility the lawyer has, because you don't want to let that person down. And I was really, she's the one that, if I would have not won her case, or if I would have, not gotten her what I thought was a fair result, that's probably one that would still keep me up at night, because I'd feel bad for her and feel bad about my work and how I did. But it's one now that I love to talk about because, she is such a inspiration to, I tell my other clients about her, and she's actually talked to some of my clients who are in, laid up in the hospital. I'll say, "Look, I've got a client who loves to talk to you. Do you want to talk to her?" So
that's great to hear that she's doing better now. And that must be something to have such an uplifting woman to inspire you like that. And it's also, I think it's interesting how you said that in your office, it's the same two names, and everybody gravitates towards the negative. It's not that much different from the news, right?
no, it's not. I mean, it's, the negative is exciting. Somebody being nice to you on the phone and being helpful and, caring about you is not typically newsworthy. Somebody calling you up and, doing something crazy, that's what gets passed around the office. But, I'll circle back, I guess, to the one thing you said earlier, which is that, our industry, the personal injury industry specifically, we have a bad rap, and some lawyers sometimes do things that are unethical or whatever. Not to go that far, but it's an awkward thing to talk about your successes when we do what we do, because it's money based, and you look greedy just naturally. You look greedy and you look money hungry if you say, hey, we got this great 1 million, 5 million, whatever number is settlement. But what we're really trying to say is, I worked really damn hard and I helped this person get this money that will change their life. Because of confidentiality rules that defense lawyers and defendants and insurance companies put on us, I can't tell most stories. So, we get put in this box of, we can't tell about all the great work that we've done and how we've helped people because it's confidential. Usually
That's tough. Yeah.
And it usually shouldn't be. Why can't I tell you what, my client, Chris Simmons, who I settled his case this week, why can't I tell you about his crash or his whatever happened to him and how he was treated? The reason is because the people paying us and paying him don't want you to, and you got to play by their rules. So we're in this box of, you can tell these stories, but you can't give a lot of facts. So I think it's important on lawyers of all types, and anybody who does work, especially people who own their own business, tell your successes, be proud of them, and inspire other people if you can.
Yeah, I appreciate you clearing up some of that stigma, and I understand where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense, and it's tough that you can't tell about the positive wins, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, we have the largest hospital system in here, I believe, in Atlanta and in Metro Atlanta. I believe they deliver more babies than anywhere else in the country. I'm pretty sure that's true. I mean, they are like a baby farm, and that's how they make so much money. Things happen, unfortunately, during delivery and during birth. They will not settle a case that is not confidential. So every settlement has to be confidential. And you as a lawyer and as a client, the client can't tell their story. The lawyer can't talk about their success. The lawyer can't talk proudly about their client. I can talk about Danita because her settlement's not confidential. And when you ask me that question, I'm literally going through my mind saying, all right, this client, nope, can't talk about him. This client, nope, can't talk about him. This client, I don't remember, but I'm not going to risk it. Okay, I can talk about Danita. And that's part of the problem of being able to really show what our industry does, how we help people, and how we make a difference, because we're put in this box and we're not able to tell, the great work we do.
Well, thank you, Anita, or Danita rather,
Yeah.
for letting us have your story on here today. So if anybody wants to find you on the web, if they're inspired by this podcast, what's the best way to reach out to you?
My first name is Mike and my last name is Rafi. It's R-A-F like Frank I. There's only 2 lawyers I know of that do this kind of work with my last name. One guy, and I'll give him a free plug. His name is Brandon, and he's in Arizona. Brandon, I think he says Rafi. So if you're looking for the Mike Rafi, I'm purposely easily findable. My email is available. My website, call us, whatever. I mean, smoke signal me and I'll figure it out. But I spend half my day doing stuff like this because 1, it's fun, but 2, I hope it helps people. I love talking to other lawyers. I love talking about this kind of stuff. So, feel free to anybody out there who's listening, call me, text me, do whatever, and let's get to know each other.
Sweet. Yeah, it was great talking to you. Really inspiring, and great to hear you clear up some of the misnomers about personal injury. Yeah, thanks so much. This has been Jacob Wells for Latte with the Lawyers. We want to thank Mike Rafi from Rafi Law Firm, right?
You got it. Easy.
And I want to thank Motion Track without a K. It uses artificial intelligence and mobile app audiences to economically and quickly gather focus group research and data for trials and mediations. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you later.